Hey everyone, welcome to the third video in the Soul Contract System series that I am running. And if you missed the first two videos, the last one was on boundaries and the one before was on power, the power numbers in the Soul Contract System. So I'll put the links below. And today we're going to be talking about the outsider energies in the Soul Contract System. And if you don't know who I am, my name's Antonia and I love to help people gain deeper levels of self-awareness through the soul contract work and emotional healing so they can feel more compassionate, more at ease and more confident in who they are, which altogether makes life more graceful and easier and more joyful. So if you don't know the numbers, first of all, in your soul contract, no worries. Just check out the links below and you can get your free chart and then you'll be able to see what numbers you have in there. So today we are talking about the outsider energies and maybe a little bit of the isolation energies in the soul contract system and what numbers are related to that. And so the first numbers when I thought about this series that really popped up in my head were the 8-8 and the 10-1 frequency. And you might have the 19-1, you might have the 17-8. So any of these numbers, really, the 10s, the 1s and the 8s, are a very high frequency number. And so as a very high frequency soul coming down onto the density of the earth plane, it can feel really, really challenging because these are very non-tangible energies that we're talking about. And so if you've ever felt like you don't fit in, you don't know where you belong, you're not sure how to fit into society, you don't feel like you fit and you're not quite sure how to find your place, and you may have these energies floating around in your soul contract. Now, I don't have the 10-1, but I do have a very strong karmic 8-8 coming through in my chart. So I know this one well, and I've done quite a few videos about the 8 energy because it's one of my favorites. But ultimately, both of these energies are actually about the hands. So one is the left hand and one is the right. And this is all about taking your hand and putting it out there and risking yourself to connect with someone else. It's kind of like reaching out a hand to give and to receive. And the 10-1s and 8s can find that a little bit challenging. The 8s are a very sensitive frequency. They're deeply empathetic, but they often become the peacekeepers in their family or their relationship or their dynamic. And so because they feel things so deeply, they tend to prefer the company of nature and of animals. And so they can actually isolate themselves a little bit from society because people don't feel safe to be around. And again, I know this from experience. And the 10-1s, because it's the godlike energy, the masculine energy of God coming down in this number, it can also feel like it's a very intangible feeling of, I don't quite fit here, what am I doing here? And it takes a long time for these energies to really come through. And ultimately, people with a 10-1 energy find deep joy and fulfillment through being of service. And so when they step into the that service mindset of giving back to the world, of taking a chance to put themselves out there, then the reward is very great for them. It's the same with the 8s. When they do connect with people, they connect with them very, very deeply. And often people love to be around the people with the 8 energy, even though the 8s sometimes don't want to be around those people because they sense that that connection as well, that high frequency nature. So those are the two numbers I would connect very, very deeply with, feeling a little on the outskirts, a little on the margins, a little on the outside, and not quite being able to fit in or find your place or feel comfortable in your society or in your area, in your group, in your community. And then we have a slightly different energy, and these are the 7s and the 5s that I'm going to talk about on a slightly different level. Now, both of these energies are a little bit floaty, and again, I have both of them, and I've done quite a few videos on these ones. And the 7s and the 5s are about the feet. So one is the left foot and one is the right foot. And for the 5s, it's a very etheric energy, and the 5s are really here to come out of the land of abstraction, which is kind of not quite formed, not quite tangible, into a real manifestation of who they are. They're here to really declare themselves. They're really here to take a positive step forward into the world and say, I am here, I am living, I am committed to this earthly life. I will come down from the etheric realms and ground myself in my body and into earthly life. But that can feel a little bit challenging. And so the 5 energy, when people have it, they can be a little bit floaty, a little bit ungrounded. And so it can be a little hard sometimes to connect with this energy because they're off living somewhere else, depending on where that energy is. They can be quite, quite fluid, quite sort of overthinking, quite imaginative, quite a dreamer. And this isn't a bad thing at all. And remember, none of these energies or numbers work in isolation. There's a whole picture in your chart. So you may be watching this thinking, I've got 5s, but I don't feel like that at all. It's totally dependent on the other numbers you have in your chart and the dynamic between them all, because none of them work just on their own. So the other numbers, which can be a little bit isolating, are the 7s. The reason the 7s get isolated because they have often had a heartbreak. And this is normally an emotional abandonment wound. And they don't want to risk showing who they truly are to the world. So 7s can often wear a social mask that really hides them from the world. And they only feel safe to show who they truly are to a small amount of people. So with the 7 energy, it's very protective. It can be quite controlling. I don't want anyone to see me. But with the 5s, it can be a bit like, oh, I'm in la la land. I don't want to deal with all this earthly stuff. So you can see with both of these energies, the 7s hide themselves away and the 5s are not quite committing to engaging with right here, right now. And so both of those together can be a little outsider energies as well, a little isolation as well. And then the last numbers I've got on these are the 4s and the 6s. So you might have a 6-6 or a 15-6, a 13-4, a 22-4 or a 4-4 energy in your chart. And the 4s can be a little bit isolated because they're here to learn to trust. And so often they are here to feel worthy of receiving. It's a big number about abundance. But we need to be very trusting that as we give, we receive. And the 4, giving and receiving flow can come, it can be a bit, what's the word for it? It can get manipulated, and so they might tend to overgive, or they might tend to take. And you'll know which one you are, and they're really here to redevelop trust. And so this is not just trust in the universe and in the world, but trust in people. And so the 4s can keep to themselves and stay a little bit isolated because that feels safer than trusting people. And then we have the 6s. Now the 6s is huge creative power coming through. And they're very creative, and even if they don't know they're creative, there is often a very deep hidden creativity within them, and it doesn't have to be traditional creativity. It can be anything from loving to cook, to singing, to writing, to art, to drama, to making up rhymes in your head. There's no end of creativity. We're all creative deep in our souls, but the 6s have a lovely connection. But that connection can get disrupted when the ego gets in the way, or they try and do too much and they end up spinning lots of plates and not being able to focus on one thing. And then that creative flow gets really disrupted, and there can be a lot of anger and frustration. And so the 6s will tend to isolate in order to focus more on what they really want to do. And again, that can be a very isolating energy because they're trying to be on their own to get more focused, but the more that they're on their own, the more they're in their heads, and it all gets a little bit tangled. So as you can see, there's quite a broad spectrum when we're talking about outsider isolation energies in the soul contract system. And as a recap, we've got the 10 ones and the 8s, which is people with a high frequency nature coming down to the density of earth, and that can feel like quite a grating challenge to really be here and ground in this reality. We've then got the 5s and the 7s, which are all about the feet, and they're really here to learn to communicate who they truly are, and again a little bit more grounding into this reality. And then we've got the 4s and the 6s, which are here to learn to trust, trust in that creative flow, trust in other people, trust in the world, trust that they are supported. and not go into isolation because of that lack of trust or needing to focus. They're here to really come out into the world as well. So these are quite, I would say, dynamic interpretations of the numbers, but I do lots of different videos. I haven't worked out what I'm going to do next week, but I will let you know. Please do subscribe if you want to keep in touch with this series. If you have any comments, let me know. Pop me an email if you have any questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time, and I wish you a very beautiful rest of your